twisted through 7 suns of gold, and the gypsy was insisting that his story.
Hello, you are listening to the Soberful podcast. I'm Veronica Valley.
And I'm Chip Summers.
And we are the hosts of this podcast that is very close to its 200th episode, which is
quite difficult to say for a start.
Yeah.
So, quite difficult to achieve for a start. I never thought we would get here.
No, it's really amazing. Yeah. I didn't either. And so we're also you can listen to the podcast now on YouTube, on my YouTube channel.
Can you?
Yeah, so you can. That's why we have our videos on, and you can, if you want, watch all our mistakes.
Yeah, you've just told me that, and I was just saying I would have had a shave if I had known that. But
oh no, it's slightly like not crisp enough, the video, and it makes you look roguish.
Oh, good. Okay, I like roguish. I like roguish.
Lovable rogue.
Yeah, like roguish. That will go down nicely. Yeah.
Would Heidi like that?
Heidi would like roguish, yeah.
She'd like roguish. Okay.
She'd like, yeah.
So we are doing We Answer Your Questions today. Really good ones. These are submitted. It really kind of, we will always ask our Soberful Life community, and they submitted questions on the subject of anger. So that's what we're going to be answering. Before I get started, I just want you guys to let you guys know that I have a kind of unique little event that I'm doing on the 1st and 2nd of November. It's a training and free coaching session on emotional sobriety. It's a 2-day event. It's going to be at 3 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. in the UK, because that's the weird week that the clocks all go back at the different days. And I'm going to do a teaching on what is emotional sobriety. And then on the second day, I'm going to answer your questions and offer some free coaching for anybody who is struggling with emotional sobriety. And emotional sobriety is really about mastering our feelings and how we feel and all of that kind of stuff. So as usual, just go to soberful.com to sign up for that, because the goal here is not just to be sober and not drink. The goal is to be emotionally sober. So how are you doing, Chip? I feel like I haven't seen you for a while.
I'm doing okay. One of my very close relatives has got leukemia, which is very difficult for everybody because she's very young, and that's very difficult. And it's hard to handle. But and I think more than anything, I've had to really reflect on how I have been as a relative to her, a grandfather, and. I think, it's made me have to think about that quite hard, which is not a bad thing at all. And but other than that, very well. Not looking forward to the end of summer. I like the summer. I don't like the nights drawing in, and they're doing that already. And so, but in general, I'm doing very well. Still got my health, and all good. I've still got my wife and I coming up for our 18th anniversary. I think we've been together 22 years in about a month. Yeah.
And that's your same day as your clean
it is,
sober
yes,
type. And how many years will that be?
That will be 38 years.
God.
But I deliberately chose that date so I wouldn't forget our anniversary. Yeah.
Oh my God. My husband said to me just yesterday, because we got married twice. We got married legally to start my green card paperwork on October 2nd. And then we had our wedding about 6 months later. And I said that we can't, let's just celebrate the wedding date. We can't celebrate. It's too much. Sure. And just the other day, it was our anniversary. And I was like, I can't stop doing that to me. We've agreed that we don't celebrate October 2nd, which was just like, we did it in jeans in Singapore. It was like a quick thing in California that we did just to start the paperwork off. But we had a wedding at King's College Chapel in Cambridge, and we celebrate that on March 27th. But he every few years he goes, it was our wedding anniversary, and I'm like, Actually, he did forget this year. He did forget March 27th, and my husband's very, very, very good at that stuff. Like, he remembers my sober birthday. He's very good, so he was quite upset. Anyway, And I wasn't angry. Pivoting
Really?
to our subject. No, I wasn't angry. Because he's very good at lots of things. So I wasn't angry at all. All right. So I'm going to dive into the first question.
Okay.
So this, there was so many good questions. I tried to highlight the ones that we'll get to as many as we can. Anger is a big trigger for me and oftentimes comes out of nowhere. I then can justify having a drink as a way to calm down when nothing else works. Anger is also a way that my anxiety will manifest, also seemingly out of nowhere. I try to be self-aware, but sometimes I just don't know why I am so angry and end up snapping at my kids or partner. What are the best ways to handle anger as a trigger and anger that seems to have no explanation? Thoughts?
Thoughts is that I don't believe it comes out of nowhere. I can understand how people suddenly find themselves angry and they're not quite sure why, but I don't think it comes out of nowhere. It's usually triggered by something. And it can be triggered by, you might have a delayed reaction to a phone call from one of your parents or something. You may have said some remark and you didn't really register at the time. And then about an hour later, you suddenly registered it and you went, damn, damn them. They've done it again, But also there was, he or she was saying that, it comes out of nowhere. I get very anxious and then I have a drink.
And then I can justify having a drink. And that's the bit that stood out for me in that, that's probably why you are maybe subconsciously nurturing your anger.
Yeah.
It's a free drink, right?
Yeah, it is.
The anger is a free drink.
We have to hang our drinking on something. And if there's nothing else around, then maybe we can get angry out of nowhere. And that's not to disparage the person who's written that question in, but I do think they should probably have a look a little bit at the fact that there was anger there was anxiety there was sort of different reasons for her needing to have, or them needing to have a drink. And I think we all none of us really just go, do you know what? I fancy a drink. I want to get a little bit drunk. We all have to go, well, my husband's upset me or my wife's upset me or the weather's bad or the traffic jam. We have to hook it on something. And it felt to me that there was a bit of fishing around there for an excuse because I don't think anger comes out of nowhere. I think sometimes that, we obviously have very justifiable anger. Anger is a perfectly legitimate emotion, although for some reason, unlike a lot of other emotions, it's sort of almost disparaged and not allowed, but I mean, it is a perfectly legitimate emotion, except when it becomes, overwhelming and just takes over our lives. But I don't think I've ever got angry I actually don't get angry very much at all. I don't think I've ever got angry for no reason at all. And I think because of the way my emotional reactions were squashed from the age of 0 to 16 by every single authority and parent I came across, that I never really it took me ages to develop an emotional response anyway, and anger wasn't one of the ones that kind of came to the fore. Although, there've been a few times in recovery when I got angry, but I have to say, often quickly changes into a resentment for me. It doesn't ever come out as kind of rage or shouting and stuff like that. That's not in my armory at all. But in this particular person's case, I think I would be saying, rather than I'll be looking at the fact that they seem to feel the need to drink on any emotion, whether it's anxiety, anger, or anything else.
I think that what happens is that there's always a route. It's not coming out of nowhere, but it's delayed. So It's something, and this is about permission to feel our feelings. Something happens that makes us angry, but we feel we have a belief system that that's an unacceptable emotion to have. So we swallow that down. It doesn't go anywhere. It's just sort of bubbling under the surface. And then, your shoelace breaks and it's like an explosion, and it doesn't seem, it's like, what? But it's something that happened hours, maybe even days earlier, that's just been there below the surface. But I also think there's a real connection there we outsource our emotions to alcohol to manage our emotional life. And I want to say there's probably a payoff here that you're not looking at to, you want to keep your anger because it gives you the reason to drink. And then we can, it's not our fault we're drinking. It's not my fault. Not my fault I'm drunk or having a drink. It's my anger and the thing or the person that made me angry. And that's the work there, is to uncover that. And it's not, it'll be there. Trust us.
Because we often hang on to trauma, sadness, depression, difficult events that have happened in our past. We hang on to them much longer than they need to be, because they provide us with a very justifiable excuse. You know, I had a crap childhood. Well, that gave me license to use for the best part of 20 years. Once I'd kind of locked that one on, I was able to look at that. But I think you're really right. I think things like, being late for an appointment or something, and being late and getting really angry about it. There's a whole chain of things that you're angry about probably before that, but you get angry with the very last thing. You know, probably angry with yourself for leaving late. You're angry with yourself, angry with the traffic that was there when you didn't expect it to be. But the thing that makes you angry and tips you over the edge is the fact that your door gets caught on your coat gets caught on the door as you try and get in the thing, and suddenly you're tearing your coat and trying to get, and that's when it kind of suddenly explodes, although there's been anger building up for quite a long time. But it'll take a tiny little thing for it to explode. And I've certainly done that. I've sort of got frustrated and anxious, or just frustrated, got somewhere, and I use that analogy because I can remember the belt of my coat getting caught on a door handle, and I got so furious, and I ripped the coat, and it just, and everybody, all I'd done was walk through the door, and suddenly there was this madman, dragging his coat off the door.
Totally picture that.
Tearing it and destroying it. Just because my coat had got caught in the door. But it wasn't that. It was like a build-up, slowly, of hours of anger and frustration because I was probably running late or something like that. Yeah, so that can happen for sure.
Okay, so here's another one. I continue to work on accepting and acknowledging feelings of anger. I often cry when I'm angry or intensely frustrated, which seems more acceptable. So I'm going to guess immediately this is a woman. But I struggle still with how to appropriately release anger. Would love to know why this continues to be challenging. Finding ways to actually let go of anger in a healthy, constructive way that frees me from holding on to it. Any suggestions or advice would be wonderful. One of the things about anger, it's very different for men and women. I think for men, it's one of the very few emotions that's permitted. Like lots of emotions are not permitted for men. You're not allowed to be, sad or, but men are allowed to be angry. That's permissible. So I feel like for men, a lot of emotions kind of go down that funnel when they're actually something else, particularly fear.
Yeah.
And again, I feel that often anger in women, again, it's not acceptable. It's not a feminine trait, and often can come out as tears and frustration. And also anger is just fear announced. Yeah. And what is the root of a lot of anger is actually fear. I know, for instance, when I've really shouted at my children and frightened them, it's been on the occasion that they've done something that's scary, and I've been like, get back. And they're receiving anger, whereas I'm terrified because I'm like, oh my God, they're just about to fall down a crevice or something.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I think men get angry for lots of other reasons. If they've been abandoned, if they're sad, if they're feeling lonely, they'll get angry at people or other things. I know my wife particularly will, if she gets angry, as she did with our neighbours recently, she will cry because she's so frustrated, and that's how it comes out. Because I think she finds getting really angry really difficult. and I think that's a generalization that's sort of fair to make, is that a lot of men will get angry because they're frightened, say because they've been abandoned, they've been hurt, everybody's awful to me, or the work's too much, and they'll display it they'll raise their voice and display it in what seemingly an angry way, but just because they're not able or they are able, but they haven't really got the vocabulary sometimes to be able to express, as you said, acceptable. Because it's, if I go to I know it's a stupid thing to say, but if I go to the golf club, how are you? I'm feeling really angry at the moment. People go, oh, really? Yeah, okay, fine. If I was to go to the golf club and say, actually, I'm feeling really vulnerable and sad at the moment, they would look at me as if I'd come from Mars, because they just wouldn't get that at all. I mean, I just used two words that a man cannot: vulnerable and sad or upset. Just not allowed to say that.
No.
Yeah.
So everything just goes down the funnel of anger. Yeah. So this person's asking for some suggestions on letting go and of anger in a healthy, constructive way that frees me from holding on to it. I want to suggest finding out what's underneath it.
Yeah.
What is the anger saying? Is there fear? And what are the fears? Is that what it is?
Yeah, I think you have to be able to take the time to process what it is you're angry about. I got really angry about the fact that when I ran the rehab, as you well know, for such a long time, and it ended very badly. I hung on to that anger for quite a long time. When everybody asked how I was feeling, well, I'm okay, except this has got me really angry. I'm really resentful about this. And it wasn't until I went into therapy went to my therapist again and kind of processed it that, I felt really hurt. I felt quite jealous. I felt a whole range of things. But when anybody asked me, I didn't bother to do that process work. I just sort of said, "Oh, I'm really angry about this." And I think if you're having something that's consistently, and in this person's case, seemingly persistently, getting them angry, I think it's worth going to somewhere and unraveling it a little bit, finding out what's behind that anger, and really, rather than just accepting your version of what it is, which is I am angry, go and talk to somebody else about it, and sort of get another point of view about it. And they might be able, if they're able to kind of say, well, maybe it's because you're jealous. Maybe it's because you feel abandoned, or maybe whatever it is. But getting another perspective on it, I think, will help. Because at the moment, they are living on the impression that it's just their version of the event that is the correct one.
Yeah. And that I think they're doing well in, feel your feelings is the first thing. Give yourself permission to be in your feelings, then, and because all they are just data. There's some information for you underneath this, and that's what we have to get to, because what you're talking about with the treatment center. It's not wrong to feel angry. That's an appropriate emotional response to an event, right? I don't believe people when something really big happens and they're like, I am calm, I am peace. I'm like, really? Because I'd be throwing things.
Yeah.
It's getting stuck in it that's the problem, right?
Yes.
It's that we want to process through it to get to the wisdom, the teachings, the learning, the growth, the freedom. This is all process work. It's a pillar of process, guys. It's in the book, Soberful, the book. Buy the book.
Is it? Have you written the book? Have you? Okay. Yeah. No. I mean, I can think another example I can think of is sometimes when a relative dies, they get very angry at hospitals and doctors.
Yes. And that's fear.
And that's fear, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's directing all their anger onto something.
Yeah.
People who probably did their very best, but maybe not in all cases. But you know what I mean. It gets directed at something.
Yes.
Rather than acknowledge what's really going on.
Yeah. I mean, one of the places to see this is at an airport. That's when, right? That's when people absolutely can lose their shit if they miss a plane, or it's my biggest, I get to airports, when I was in England over the summer, there was all this chaos with, do you remember all the chaos with flights and nobody getting their luggage?
Yep.
I got to Heathrow almost 6 hours before my flight.
Me too. I would do
for
it.
America. I'm like,
I would do it. Yep.
you and me would be the same. Our
Yep.
spouses would be like running for the plane. You and me, I was in the lounge having a lovely time because like, whoa.
Yeah. If we had a flight at 9 o'clock, I would be at the airport at 7 latest.
Oh my God, I won't be there at 7. I'd be there at 5:30.
Heidi would leave at 7. Oh, it'll be all right. It'll be fine. It's like, no, I can't do it. Can't do it.
No, I am. But that's when you see it, because it's like people, you know, it's a vacation or a wedding they're going to, or, you know, haven't seen someone for years. It's like all of that anger, and it's what's under that is fear and disappointment and love and lots of complicated emotions. So yeah, it's interesting.
But very difficult in those circumstances to process it, you know, to sort of to stop. Once the thing about anger is once it's in you and the adrenaline is pumping, and which is what's happening, and you're in that kind of fight mode, it's very, very difficult to calm it down. And, you know, if somebody was to tap you on the shoulder and say, look, would you like to come and process that for a little bit? You know, you'd probably
peace
get a
and
slap
love,
in the
peace and love.
Yeah, you know, it's so difficult because your body is absolutely, you know, it's coursing with adrenaline, and it's absolutely pumped up to its fullest.
Yeah,
you know, it takes so much energy to do that you need to step away and kind of calm down, and that can take a few hours, and that's the problem of somebody trying to give you a rational response. You're too pumped up with the chemicals to be able to kind of just come down. Why don't you calm down? It's like, whoa, it's going to push you even further. It's very hard, and that's the trouble. I think people get. I mean, when people go into that angry mode, it's so difficult to control it and to be sort of reasonable and rational about it. And that's often why people get caught in very difficult situations, because they can't stop themselves.
Yeah. So the next question is a really good one, and it kind of follows on to this, because so much of this is about childhood and our childhood experiences of anger. So this question is, my anger is sometimes uncontrollable. This emotion rolls over me like a wave when I feel misunderstood, not taken seriously, or simply forgotten. I then tend to lose control over myself, like a child kicking and screaming on the floor, and immediately think of ways to harm myself, especially alcohol, to get rid of this emotion. There are times when I get so wound up in this feeling that it results in panic attacks. I'm scared of myself when this happens. I know techniques from these anger-filled episodes, and they really help, but it would be great to know how to control this emotion before it escalates. These episodes take so much energy away from me. So for me, that is someone who's feeling misunderstood, not taken seriously, or simply forgotten. I'm going to guess that's experiences that you had as a child or young person, which are those are horrible experiences to not be seen, that you don't matter, that how you feel doesn't matter. So it would be appropriate to feel angry about that. And I'm going to guess that this person is very, very connected to what happened to them when they were young, and that's what gets triggered. If there's but the thing is, what happens as an adult, it's not necessarily that you are being, you know, not taken seriously, but you're perceiving that behavior from other people, and your brain is going to, this is how it was like when you were a child, and then the subconscious mind just brings in, well, this tsunami of feelings. What do you think, Chip?
It's funny, this whole topic is actually bringing up stuff for me, because I'm realizing how incredibly difficult I find it to get angry like that person and the previous person are describing, sort of a real rage, because it was so squashed out. I mean, it's not even squashed out. You just absolutely were not allowed to be like that in our family. And then on top of that, I went to boarding schools from the year 6 to 17, where you had to do what you were told. And, you know, you couldn't fight the system. You just had to. So anger just wasn't, it's something I find so difficult to access in a strong way. I can get angry about a few things, but it doesn't manifest itself as kind of as a rage, as that person was saying, like a, they just, I think let's use the word tantrum, in that kind of way. I'm so disconnected from that ability to do that. I'm quite envious sometimes of people who can do that. But again, it kind of, I've got a horrible feeling a lot of our responses are going to be quite similar, because that person is describing something that happens not over and over, but quite frequently. They're in that situation. They find themselves when they're not being heard, when they feel misunderstood, which is something that can happen quite a lot in all sorts of circumstances, relationships, going out shopping, on travel and transport. You can have that feeling of being, righteous indignation. And if your go-to response is to get like that, then that's probably something that I think if you do the process work, you will find out why you get like that. I don't think that's necessarily going to mean that you're going to stop being like that, but I think you could probably learn to temper it down a bit so it doesn't take over a whole day or something, so that it actually only takes over half an hour or something. But I think if once you know why you get so angry, because people don't just get really, really, really angry because they're not being heard for no reason. They get like that because that's probably been their experiences throughout their life, or by the important people who were supposed to love them in their lives didn't listen to them, didn't make them feel understood, and that used to make them really angry. I just think trying to find out why is going to be the secret to this, and the fact that they're asking the question means that they're already on that journey, which is great.
Yeah, for me, this is a pattern that they're playing out from childhood over and over. And one of the things that a lot of us experienced when we were growing up is that I think that we come from a generation where children's feelings weren't taken seriously. Like, and I'm trying to, my youngest can get, sometimes I feel like, because he's the youngest, sometimes we're like, oh, hurry up, Lukey, or whatever. And then he gets upset. And it's like, we forget that he can't run as fast or tie his shoelaces yet, or all those kind of things. And then he gets really angry and upset. And I always try and really acknowledge that and say, you know what, that's mummy's fault. I didn't realize that you were really struggling with your shoes. And I'm sorry that, because I know it's quite, and to really acknowledge and validate his feelings. And I think a lot of us, like, I just think of the things that my kids have got really upset for. For me, it's a trivial thing. Like my eldest son when he had braces, was really, really upset, got really anxious and nervous that the other kids wouldn't like the color that he'd picked, because they could pick a color, and they wouldn't sit with him at lunchtime. And that was a really big anxious worry for him. And I took it very seriously. For us, it's like these are trivial things, but they're not for them. In their world, that's their world. That's a really big deal. And I think a lot of us didn't have our feelings and emotions acknowledged. They were just so I think this person, for me, I think this is all childhood, and I think that your feelings and emotions, including anger, were not ever noticed or validated. It seems like they weren't noticed and validated. And this reoccurrence in adulthood, what it is, this experience, is your subconscious mind is knocking at the door saying there's some really important historical stuff here that needs validation and attention and healing, so you can be free of it. And I think what happens is, this is how limiting beliefs are formed. I think you are perceiving these things happening to you, and I don't think you are being not taken seriously or forgotten, but you will perceive that in a lot of places, and it will trigger this automatic response. So this is some really important work. This is the process work. This is a pillar of process that I believe that you can get free of this and see it differently, and therefore feel differently. But you're probably going to need someone outside, an expert to help you with that.
Yeah, I mean, if I think a sort of simple analogy for that is the one time I actually get shouty angry, and I know it's a cliche, is in traffic when I'm being held up, and I can get really, really shouty angry, to the point the other day where I thought, you better calm down, Chip. Otherwise, you're gonna blow your brain here if you keep on like this. And that is all about being late. The messages I used to get about being late.
Oh, yeah.
It's about, you didn't think carefully enough. You didn't plan carefully enough. It's got nothing to do with the car in front of me.
You have failed. You have,
exactly. Yeah. As soon as I kind of found myself in this, I mean, I was really, really going for it. And it was it was ridiculous. It was so out of proportion. And it was all because I was going to be late for something that I didn't want. And what doesn't matter what it was. I just don't like being late. And normally I leave plenty of time, and I did this time, but just pushed it a little bit too far. And that's what it was about. It wasn't about the traffic. It was about me being late. And that message was
and that's all childhood stuff, which means if Chip is late, he's not planned, he's not good enough. And that was your childhood. Yeah. Yeah.
You'll be left behind.
And we have the same thing about being late. I have it in a different way, but it's the same result. It makes me, it just consumes me. Like just the other day, last week, I had my kids and we had to run to the grocery store and then go to something. Can't remember what it was now. And I parked at where the grocery store is, and this guy said to me, slow down in the parking lot. And I had this feeling, like, who the fuck do you think? And he was right. I drove too quickly in the parking lot. I didn't need to do that. And I did it because I was so scared of being late. Yeah. And I had this real angry reaction at him, which went very quickly because my next thought was, he was right. And I would be pissed off if I was walking with my kids and I saw someone drive as fast as I did. And then there's all the feelings of shame and all that kind of stuff. So a lot of this is the roots, the messaging, the messages that you had as children. Yeah. It's interesting, Chip. I was thinking, because I don't remember you ever really losing your shit. No. But you did do. I want to say, I'm going to offer you something here. I'm a bit scared. So you had, and you're very funny as well, is frustration. Is the frustration at the people driving too slow, the frustration at the people. I remember this whole thing, and it was hysterical. I can remember sitting in the office at Focus of you being in line to pay for something, and there was someone ahead of you who was just taking forever, and you were about to blow a gasket. But the way you described it was very, very funny. And I almost want to say this part of frustration that you enjoy. Oh, yeah, without doubt. I think because it's one of the few opportunities I get to actually, because in the car, it's sort of cliche anger. Outside of that, I hardly ever raise my voice. I hardly ever get angry. I hardly ever. You get frustrated, but I've never seen you get angry. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's like you can't go. Frustrated is a level below anger, right? Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. And it's very difficult for me to access anger, to really kind of go. Yeah, it's quite difficult and maybe that's where I let it out but it is difficult for me to access it. And when this topic came up, I thought, God, I find that very difficult to do. But yes, frustration I do, and sarcasm I do, which is an angry thing. Sarcasm can be very angry. You can be, you can be funny, but you can be, you can display a lot of anger with sarcasm. And I think that's probably where mine comes out, is sort of, what is it, passive anger? Not even passive anger, really. But just a slight little sarcasm. It makes a few people laugh, but actually beneath it, there's probably some anger ticking away there. That's, we should probably mention when people are passive aggressive, because that's anger that the person can't permit themselves to express or verbalize. Yep. So they're passive aggressive. So that's the when someone says, oh, is it all right if you pick up the kids tomorrow? And they're like, yeah, that's fine. Yeah, no problem with that whatsoever. Yeah, that's so they're saying, it's fine, but you're feeling like, whoa, this doesn't feel feel like they are fine at all. But they won't ever say, and that's really and that's anger. Passive aggressive behavior is anger.
Yeah, mine can come out even less aggressively than that. To go, yeah, sure, no problem at all. Anything else you want me to do? Would you like me to pick up the shopping at the same time? I can do that if you want, or if you want me to drop off the laundry, I can do that, no problem. Yes, of course, I'd be delighted. I can start moving into that, which is very passive aggressive. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
So I think going back to this question, I think there is a lot there in childhood that needs to be understood.
Yes.
It needs to be, and almost I just what's happening here, I think, by not understanding and healing your childhood, this person is doing to themselves what they believe was done to them.
Yep. That's pretty good. That's pretty
Isn't
good.
Isn't it?
That's pretty good. That's pretty good. That's good. Yeah, that is good.
Yeah. That's what's happening, is they are not that there's their inner child, for want of a better word, really needs to be acknowledged, seen, validated, loved, healed, and connected with.
Yep.
And you are not doing that to yourself. And that's the work that needs to be done. And if you recognize yourself, reach out and let us know if we're kind of on the money there.
And that, you said that inner child thing in a slightly disparaging way. But actually, I think it gets a bad rap, that kind of
No, I agree. I'm with you. Yeah, because the inner child stuff is...
It's very important. I think it's a really valid, thing to look at and to acknowledge. Yeah.
No, I do.
I know a lot of people go, well, that inner child crap again. Actually, no, I think it's a very valid. I think it's almost the core of stuff. But
I agree. I used to feel very disparaging about it, but I don't either, because the work that I almost did accidentally that kind of connected with this, and there's various parts of us at different ages that are almost frozen in time that are waiting for someone to acknowledge, see, heal, love, and we are the only ones who can do it. It's like there's little parts of us, right, frozen, that are waiting for that to happen. Okay, so this is a good question. Justifiable anger. It's so good and not healthy. Trying to learn how to let go of it and the concept, if only people did the right thing, according to me, of course. So justifiable anger.
Well, I don't know whether it's my saying or something I picked up, but I always used to say, there is no power on earth greater than the alcoholic wrongly accused. You can accuse, also, you accuse an alcoholic incorrectly and you'll get anger. They could be drunk Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Saturday, Sunday. You accuse them of being drunk on Friday, you're going to get it. You're going to get some real anger because you got that one wrong, buddy. I wasn't drunk on Friday. I was not. I was sober. How dare you accuse me? How dare you accuse me of being drunk on Friday? We went to the cinema and I had Coke and popcorn. How dare you accuse me? And it's like, you accuse me of stealing something or do it incorrectly. You'll get some anger then for sure. Yeah. So I think justified anger. Yeah. Yes.
So I want to say, anger is a legitimate and necessary and important emotion, and we should feel angry about things. And in fact, there's lots of that's how social change happens. Yes. Is we look at things and go, and it makes us so angry that people are being treated this way, or this has happened, or that's happened, or whatever. And you just get so angry. It's a very, very motivating emotion. Yes. It makes you, I was, not to get into this subject, but I listen to the British news every day. I was just listening to Radio 4 about what the political situation in the UK. And I think we're probably going to see the government collapse soon, or we're going to see millions of people protesting, like happened in the 90s with the poll tax. There was just millions of people were so angry they just didn't care what was going on in their lives. They went to London and they protested. And
Yep.
I'm watching a fantastic show right now called Sherwood about the miners' strike and how
No,
angry.
it is good. It is
yeah,
good,
and there is a place for justifiable anger because it makes things happen that need to happen.
Yeah, and I'm old enough to remember the riots in Paris in the Sorbonne and the Grosvenor Square riots in London, which I was part of.
What were the Grosvenor Square riots?
We were demonstrating outside the American embassy, unfortunately, about the Vietnam War, and and there was a huge demonstration. A lot of people got hurt, and it was a big demonstration. But that was a change when people were getting absolutely fed up. But unfortunately now, I mean, you talk about the poll tax riots and various things. I've got a feeling that in England, particularly, we've just become incredibly apathetic.
And that's not a good thing.
Not a good thing at all, because it allows all this stuff to continue. If we just go, oh well, what's the point in voting? Which is exactly what they want us to think. And then you see this very, very, very angry split in America. You know, where people really are really frustrated about the way situations are, and on both sides, and becoming incredibly angry. I mean, dangerously angry about it, and it's tearing America apart. We, of course, in England have been very apathetic about things, but you've got a different.
I think that's going to change, but we'll see.
Yeah, I hope so.
So justifiable anger is something that we should acknowledge and look at and act upon in certain cases. But I think what this person is saying is trying to, if only people did the right thing according to me, is that it's not my, I think we all see, just like that example I gave of the man who saw me, he was angry because he saw me drive too fast in a parking lot, and he said something, and I was angry, but it did make me think. It's not always our job to go around policing other people. I think that I don't know about you, there's sometimes I don't always get it right. Sometimes something makes me really angry and I say something because it's an injustice. And there's other times something's made me really angry and I didn't say something and I regretted it.
Absolutely.
I wish I could go back and say, you know what, absolutely no, that's not okay what you said or did or whatever. So
I think
would you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a lot of times I come back and I'll say to Heidi, I should have, but I haven't done anything. I've just sort of walked away from it, and I should have said something.
And so I think that's the pillar of balance. It's about, when is it right for me to say or act because this is wrong, and when is it not? And I want to say, all of us will sometimes get that right and sometimes get that wrong, and because the other thing is, anger is really frightening. It can be really frightening. And I also want to say, when you're a woman, men's anger is terrifying. It can be terrifying. Quite often.
Well, when you're a man like me, women's anger can be terrifying, trust me. But I was just thinking about the times in my life when I have got angry is when I am being fed bullshit by I can remember once there was a hotel Heidi and I were staying at, and there were about 3 fire alarms in the middle of the night. Nobody knew what was going on. All the guests were out and about, and we were being fed absolute rubbish. And I can remember getting really angry about that, and that sort of being fed bullshit, really
being treated like an idiot.
Exactly. It's like, give me stop it. Just treat me like an adult, will you please? That can make me angry. But yes, no, I mean, it's funny you said that, because I was thinking as we were talking, we're talking about how people get angry, but not about how we react to people being angry with us. I mean, I suppose it's obviously different for me. I can handle a man being angry with me, cannot stand a woman being angry with me because of my mother. I react really badly to that. But yes, it's obviously different for a woman. For a man being angry, it must be very scary indeed. Yeah, very scary.
It's terrible, and I understand what you're saying because of what happened with your mother. But the difference for women is we know that we can be physically hurt or killed in a way that a man can't. And I think there's many times that women feel angry and want to say or do something, but it's not that their personal safety could be at risk. And it might not be, but you just don't know that about any man really when they're angry. That's how it is for women. So. The justifiable anger, I think, again, it's not wrong. It's what you do with it and when you do it. That's the question there. So, well, I think that was pretty good. I think that was a pretty good episode, actually. I really kind of enjoyed that. It gave me a lot to think about.
Yes.
It was just a really good conversation.
Stirred up a few things about I've now got to go and remember being angry about. But then, I know that there's a couple of things that have happened lately. We've had a little run-in with our neighbours about
the bees,
my bees.
Right? The bees.
And Heidi can get very upset by people's incompetence and people not. She gets really, really frustrated about that. And between us, we've got a kind of way of calming each other down and knowing what triggers each other, what triggers each other's anger. And but yes, I think it's really important that it's sort of, oh, you're very angry, or you've just got angry. Whereas people would say, oh, you're very sad, you've just got sad. Oh, you're very vulnerable, you just got vulnerable. You're right. It's a feeling. It's a perfectly legitimate feeling. There's nothing wrong in displaying it, but it's got to be done, as you said, balanced, in a balanced way.
Yeah, and we have to process it to understand what is the message, the wisdom, the healing that's underneath. Because
all those feelings, like vulnerability, sadness, they will have got their source somewhere way back, probably, usually.
Yeah. Well, please let us know what you think about this episode. You can reach me on Instagram. I'm Veronica J. Valley, or in the Soberful Facebook group, or in Soberful Life. And if you recognise your question, I'd love to know what you felt about our answer, and if you want any more feedback.
Well, and as long as they're not an angry response. I don't want an angry response.
Don't be angry with us, please.
Don't be angry. You didn't answer my question at all. You just went rabbiting on about something you wanted to talk about. You didn't get to my question at all.
And if you have a subject that you think you would like us to answer questions on, or a topic you'd like us to talk about, you can also suggest that to us as well. And please just give us a quick rating on whatever app you listen to, Spotify or Apple, whatever it is. Please just give us a quick rating. It really does help with the show being noticed and all of that kind of stuff. And I'll see you, hopefully, if you want to come to the emotional sobriety training on November 1st and 2nd, go to soberful.com to sign up for that. All right, everybody, take care.
Okay.
Take care,
Thank
Chip.
you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.